Loves, and welcome to another episode of the Lux and Leverage podcast and YouTube. A little bit of housekeeping first. I am going to be changing the day of the release of the podcast. I have some in-person, I'm doing a French immersion class where I go into the city every Monday and spend a few hours learning French in true immersion style. And that means that my Mondays are going to be a little bit busy and I don't want to have to rush it. So we are going to be doing the podcast release on Fridays now, Australian time. So that will be Thursdays everywhere else in the world almost. The other thing we need to talk about is my hair. Oh my God. I've just had my hair done about a week ago and I hate the blonde. Like I've been blonde forever and I have a love-hate relationship because we just aren't getting it right. And it's making me irritated because the amount of goes we've had at it now, it's so light that my roots look terrible. Anyway, I'm not going to have a big thing about it, but I have to address it for those of you that see it on video because I can't ignore it. I hate it. I hate everything about it. And of course, my hairdresser's busy and we've got to get back in so we can tone it down. But I'm thinking I might even go a completely different color. We'll see how we go. It's not really urgent news. It's not something that's like breaking news that we really need to talk about. But when the elephant's in the room, we've got to address it. And oh my God, I just fucking hate it. Anyway, I'm moving on. I'm moving on. Today, I want to talk with you about innovation and how we can use innovation in our businesses to make it our superpower. And as always, I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I've used Blue Ocean strategy in the different businesses that I have had and how that has helped me to develop products in the market that stand out because they're not the same as everybody else. Now, you may or may not have heard of Blue Ocean strategy. And Blue Ocean strategy is not one of the things that I went to straight away. I didn't even really know it was a thing until I'd been kind of taking myself through this exercise for a little while, stumbled across it somewhere, don't really remember where. Went to download the book and realized I don't really need to. I think I get the gist of this. So I just took it and ran with it. But essentially, what Blue Ocean means, well, my interpretation of it is that when in the entrepreneurial space, in the business space, often the water is red. It's bloody in the waters because there's a lot of competition, right? And that's red ocean. That is where the competition is. It's where everybody's fighting over the market. And that's where the majority of businesses do business. And then there's blue ocean, and blue ocean is where the waters are clear and where you create your own market. And the way that we do that is we have a look at what the industry norms are, and then we develop our offer that's often in stark contrast to what is actually going on in the market. And one really great example that I can give you of that is my women's only Taekwondo school. So if we were to look at martial arts schools and we'll look at the way that martial arts schools are run and the way they're marketed, pretty much every martial arts school had some version of embryo taekwondo. So, they started taking kids younger and younger, which I hated. And it was really babysitting essentially and play. And then they would have like these different age groups. And then they would split the belt rankings as far as when they operated the classes, for example. But the main thing is the marketing. I want to focus on the marketing because the marketing is where your business stops or starts and ends, right? The marketing is where you actually have your first contact with your clients, right? Potential clients. And so the marketing has to grab attention and it can't do that if it's the same as everybody else. And so in the martial arts space, there was like little ninjas and all these different age group markets. And the way marketing was done, it was pretty standard, right? It was just here's our martial arts school, here are the different age ranges and the programs that we have for them. Come along and try our class for free. And often schools would offer a free uniform, things like that. And I didn't want to do that. I knew that there was power in niche, and I used my own discernment. discerntion. I was discerning, using discernment, whatever the word is. And so I had decided that I wanted to run a women's only martial arts school. So, a quick backstory, I'd sold my last martial arts school. I had moved towns. I had started training at another school, and I was training for my fourth degree black belt, I think, at the time. And I was attending the women's class, sorry, the daytime classes, because I had started another school at the same time. No, I hadn't. I hadn't started that. I was doing the day classes for a reason. I can't actually remember. I think it might have been, I think I might have actually still owned one of my schools, and I had moved town and I was still driving up and back a couple of nights a week. And it was like a 3 hour round trip, 4 hour round trip, or something like that. So I think that's why I started training the daytime classes. It's a long time ago now. We're talking 2012 or something like that. Anyway, 2011 even maybe. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Doesn't matter, does it? Anyway, so I was training these daytime classes. I was grading for my fourth degree black belt. I was on the tail end. I think I had sold that school, but was still running classes for a little while that instructor found their feet. That's how that was going, I'm pretty sure. And so I started, and I had decided that I wasn't going to start another martial arts school. I was well and truly into my online fitness business at the time. I was doing a little bit of business coaching as well. So I was getting ready not to do that anymore. But I wanted to be a student, wanted to keep training. And as is typical, I was training and showing up to these classes, and the women were really interested in the way that I was training, not just on the mat, but outside of it, because the discipline and the commitment that I had to my training was evident on the mat, right? Because I was always training outside of it. I was always sprinting and, doing everything that I could just to be as fit as I possibly could, because gradings are quite taxing, right? So gradings can go for 3 hours, 4 hours, and you're going the whole time. So I knew I needed to be super, super fit, especially when there's sparring involved, because it requires a high level of fitness. And so the woman, I was kind of like the Pied Piper for a little while there. And like the women were wanting to know everything that I was doing and what was I eating and all that stuff. And a seed started to be planted. And it was like, oh, I do feel like running my own club again. And so this is over a series of months, right? So my school, I'd stopped running classes at that stage and I had this gap. And it's like, yeah, I think I do want to start a school again. And I remember just thinking, yeah, but remember you didn't want to do it anymore for a reason. And so I spent some time thinking about it, and it's like, okay, so if I'm going to do this, what do I not want to do? And it's like, you know what? If I was to start this from scratch and do it exactly the way that I wanted to, what if I just taught women? What if I didn't teach kids anymore? Because I love kids, but teaching them had just become a bit of a exhausting. It become exhausting to me. I'm such a perfectionist, and kids don't always align with adult perfectionism, right? And I just found I was failing all of the time with the kids, even though they loved it and I loved teaching the kids. But I just knew that that was my biggest drain, teaching kids classes. So typically what happens is you've got your different belt levels or age groups or whatever, and you go into teacher classes, and by the time you get to the adult classes, which is where you want to, sometimes do your own training and where you get to really come alive, or for me, teaching, you're exhausted from running the kids classes. And in winter, it's even worse because you're freezing your ass off. You're running these classes and you're not keeping warm because you're not really doing a lot other than teaching. And these are all things that, might seem small and might seem a little bit diva, but it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go in, I want to teach a beginner's class, I want to teach an advanced class, and I want them to be adults classes, and that's it. And so I built a martial arts school that was built around adult women. And the way that I ran or bringing new students in is I created a product called the Absolute Beginner Program. And it was like a 4-week program. People came along, they got 8 classes, and I taught them a series of basics that pushed them so they could feel the benefit of training in martial arts. And I always, every single session, I was making sure that I related how being on the mat translated into real life and how the benefits would just seep into every part of their life. And it was amazing. And they didn't get a uniform, they had to pay for the 4 weeks. And I created this offer where, as I say, it was 4 weeks. They would come along, they would train, I would teach all the classes. And the percentage of people that moved from that beginner class to the actual adult class was very, very high because they got to know each other. They became connected. And so they all wanted to move together. And rather than just throw away and give somebody a uniform as a way to bring them into the classes or into the club, I made sure they earned it. They weren't allowed to wear a uniform until they had signed on to the beginner, to the actual syllabus-based program. So they moved from that beginner 4 week block into the actual beginner level classes. And so they had to earn that uniform. And we always had a joining fee and insurance and things like that. And so I waived a percentage or they paid for that and I gave them the first month free or something like that. Essentially, I credited them the cost that they had invested in that 4 week program. And it worked like a treat and it worked for a very long time. And this was something that I went on to teach other martial arts school owners. And I remember a very successful martial arts school owner that I had worked with. He sent me a photo one day of his grading and it was like massive class. And I said, yeah, but your gradings are always big, aren't they? And he said, yeah, but these are all adults. I've never had this many adults in my classes before. And we love teaching adults. And so that was my blue ocean. So it didn't start out as blue ocean. It started out with me saying, I want to do this, but I want to do it under my own set of circumstances. I want to do this my way. And so then I did start to play around with red ocean, blue ocean. And it's like, well, red ocean is martial arts schools cater to everybody, all ages, all genders, and this is the way that they do their marketing. Well, let's just start with who they teach first, right? So they basically teach everybody from embryos to 80-year-olds, right? And for me, it was like I only teach adult women. So that was straight away going from red ocean to blue ocean because I wanted to reach a market of women that needed to train in martial arts because it was going to be so good for them in every single way. And they were not getting to those classes because they were too intimidated by the men. And I knew what I wanted. I knew the culture that I wanted to create. I knew it would work. I just knew it would, and it did very successfully. So that's one example of red ocean, blue ocean, right? Most martial arts schools, especially when they're starting out, they teach in a school hall, for example. I wanted a full-time center. I wanted to open in a full-time center. The way that martial arts schools marketed was come along and get a free couple of classes. We'll give you a uniform and we'll throw you up the back with a student while the class is running. Mine was like, no, I separate the beginners so they have their own class and no instructors have to be taken out of class to take care of these students. That's my job. And there's no uniform. So everything that they were doing, I was doing the opposite of. And then when it came to pricing, it's like, well, most people will charge this. It's like, well, I'm going to charge a premium because it's a premium service. And the other things that I included were, I had this portal where I would put recipes and meal plans. And because I had had my online fitness business for quite a while there. So I gave them access to different things that would help them with their training outside of being on the mat. And that's just one really good example of blue ocean versus red ocean, right? I had some of the top coaches in the US poo-poo my idea, and they're like, why would you do that when you're going to miss out on half the market? And I just thought that was so dumb and so ignorant. And so this is the way we've always done it. And they were poo-pooing at innovation. They thought it was innovative to let 2-year-olds start trading. That's not innovation to me. That's greed. That's taking the money from people who are not really going to benefit. And sure, you could say it's a babysitting service, which it was, but then the parents have got to drive there, drop the kid off. I think the class was like half an hour. What are you going to do for half an hour? Anyway, so all of that stuff used to really piss me off. And it's like, no, I want these classes to be I want this to be such a growth tool for the women. And it was like people were starting businesses, they were leaving abusive relationships. It was amazing. And so that's one example. And yeah, in spite of everybody telling me it would never work and I would, not actually, I'm going to miss out on most of the market, which is bullshit because we know when we niche, a niche is an inch wide, but it's miles deep, and that's how you get attention. So the women that I was attracting into my school were not women that would have gone and trained anywhere else anyway. So I created a market. And I knew these women were already doing things like boxercise, and they would, they knew that they wanted something a little bit different. They didn't just want to go and do, I don't know, pump class or whatever it was. They wanted class environment, they wanted all of that, and they wanted that next level. And so I was able to give them that, and it was very successful. All right, another example of blue ocean, red ocean. So when I had my online fitness business, when I first launched it, it was called Glow Women's Fitness Online. And I sold 12-week programs, and there was a meal plan, there was programming, and there was a lot of support around the mindset, which is really where my strength was. And it was going well. There was me, and there were two other online trainers, online personal trainers. We're going, I don't know, early 2000s. 2003, maybe something like that. Anyway, early, right? And so the internet wasn't really doing its thing, but I would write articles for Shape magazine and Women's Fitness and Health. And I would spend a lot of time creating articles and getting press. And it worked very well for me. And so it was a business that did really well pretty quickly. I had at many times up to 150 women on my programs. It was very labor intensive. There were no apps back then. So it wasn't app based, it was spreadsheet based and email based. And it was like pretty labor intensive. And so I was doing that, chugging along, reasonably happy. But, when the progress reports came in over the weekend and I had to sit my ass down on a Monday morning and go through every spreadsheet and give everybody feedback, it was a long fucking day, that's for sure. And I always wanted to get it back on that day because I didn't want people waiting. Anyway, so that was the business model. And then the biggest loser came, it happened. And then we had Michelle Bridges, the Australian trainer here. She opened up her program called 12WBT, and it blew everybody out of the water just because well, she had mass market, she had a massive budget, and even my people who had been very, very loyal to me jumped ship because they wanted to go and check it out. And I didn't blame them. Like, I wanted to go and check it out. I was interested to see what she was doing, but it meant my business, well, those of us that were online, one went out of business completely, another one hung on for a little while. She was very focused on bodybuilding though, so she had a bit of a different market to me. Mine was Gen Pop, like 12WBT. And so I basically let that go, but I decided, what am I going to do then? If she's working with Gen Pop, I want to create a product that is for the fittest athletes because I have been incredibly fit in my life. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I am that sort of person who will train till they spew. Like, I get my heart rate up in the 200s, which should not happen, but I go hard and I've always been that way. I remember having my VO2 max tested when I was not even sparring fit. I'd been doing it was just like my base level kind of general fitness, and it was 50, it was close to 50. And yeah, so it's pretty wild. Like, I've always been fit and I've always liked that high intensity, hardcore kind of training. And it was really hybrid training. It was running and cycling and lifting and plyometrics and, bringing it all together. So it was, yeah, hybrid before hybrid was even a thing, really. I just trained myself the way that I knew I needed to train to be an effective fighter, right? And so I developed this program. I called it the Rip It Up Challenge, and I called it the toughest women's online fitness program on the planet. And I took the workout. So I had level one, level two, and I hadn't created level three yet, but I created level one and level two. And I knew a bunch of other women in the fitness industry by this stage. It had started to emerge a little bit more online. There was some online stuff happening, there was more social media stuff happening. And so I sent this program to a bunch of women and said, can you please do this program for me and some of my fittest clients? Can you please run yourself through this program and let me know it really is the fittest program on the planet? And they all came back and they're like, I can't even get through level one. And it was like, awesome. So, but I didn't want everyone to like fail at the beginning. So I created, it was like, so I had level one, level two, and then I created, I can't remember what I called it, but it was like pre-level one. It was like, let's just get you ready for level one. And even that they found really challenging, but they loved it. And one of the other things that was great was before I was tied to my email and these spreadsheets. Well, this is just, it wasn't customized. It was like, here's the plan, and here is the nutrition. Here are the principles behind the nutrition. It was about fueling for training and fueling for recovery and things like that. And it's like, this is not personalized, but this is the program. And then we had a Facebook group so they could ask questions and things like that. And it took away all of my workload, and the right people were signing up, and I didn't have to motivate them. They were just like, I want to get to level one. And so it was really cool. I really loved it, and they loved the training, and it was so blue ocean compared to the Gen Pop, right? One thing I want to say about the levels, I had pre-level one, level two, and then I had don't make me or make me write level three or something like that. I was challenging them, get through that, and I will write level three for you. And I ran that for quite a while. And again, it was really successful. But for me, it wasn't about Gen Pop. It wasn't about weight loss. It wasn't about, I'm going to hold your hand and help you find a freaking alternative to cottage cheese if you don't like it. Like all of those things that were just draining me, that was all gone now. And it was like, here it is. Let's see if you can reach this level. And so if I were to look at my main competitor at the time, which was Michelle Bridges, and then so many people came online after that, but mine was completely different to what anybody else had. That's what I wanted. That was the training I wanted. It's like I want it to be so hard that I want to cry for my mum when I'm training. And so that's what I did. And that innovation and that using that blue ocean strategy just changed the game for me. So where other people had left the market because it's like, I can't compete with her budget. I can't compete with the eyes that she has on her. For me, it was like, well, I'm not going to compete with her. I'm going to create my own market, and I know the right women will come along. And so that's just a couple of ways that I have used blue ocean strategy and used innovation. But at the core, what it comes down to for me is I asked myself this question: how do I want it to be? So I put myself first. I think about if I imagine this business running, and it always, I think, helps if you've got experience based on something that you've done before that you're kind of outgrowing, right? And so for me, when I looked at Glow Women's Fitness Online compared to Rip It Up Challenge, the difference was always going to be like the workload, the mental load, as well as the physical getting through the emails and the spreadsheets and things like that. So I went, well, I don't want to do any of that. And I don't want before and after photos. I don't want people to feel like they've got to do that. I just wanted to be completely athlete focused, and I knew what I was willing to do and what I was no longer willing to do, and I created an offer around that. And because I was so excited to run it, it was very easy for me to market. Had Rip It Up Challenge been that slightly, well, vastly different focus, not Gen Pop, but athlete focus, but I was still checking off spreadsheets every Monday morning and helping them navigate their nutrition and things like that. Had I still been doing all of that, it still would have been draining. So I had to figure out how I wanted to do it and then build it around that. It was the same when I started Push Women's Only Taekwondo. Same deal. It's like, if I'm going to do this, how am I going to do it differently so that I don't run into the challenges that I had from a workload point of view, right? When I first started teaching Taekwondo, I didn't have kids. And by the time I sold my last school, my kids were in high school. And so in the early days, I was home with my kids all day. And then, I would have a sitter come in at night. And that was great because I was home with them all day. And then I would go and teach classes at night. And then when the kids went to school, they were gone all day and I was gone all evening. And it just, it wasn't working for me the same way that it was. But when I had Push, I only, so back in the day, I was teaching 5 nights a week and often on Saturdays. And with Push, I had 2 classes a night, 2 nights a week, unless I was running the beginner program. And then I had one class on the alternate night anyway. So at the most, I did 8 classes a week over 4 nights. And the classes didn't, they were, one was 45 and one was an hour. So I was teaching for less than 2 hours. And so it was a very different model and it worked for me for a long time until it didn't. And we get to grow and we get to evolve and we get to move on. But I want you to start to think about, is there something in your business right now that is draining you? And if you were to shake the tree and let everything fall away that you don't want to be doing anymore, that just doesn't feel aligned, that doesn't feel great for you, then what does your blue ocean strategy look like? What does your innovation look like? Say you still love the industry you're in and you still want to do it, but what do you not want to do anymore? And then have a look at the industry norms and ask yourself, well, what would I be doing differently? And not just for the sake of it, right? So what I want you to avoid is saying, well, if we're going to use blue ocean and red ocean, we go, well, red ocean is this, and you just do the exact opposite of everything. That's not going to guarantee that it's going to work. I want you to be really sure that this is coming from what you truly want to do. And even if we look at my podcast millionaire product, right? This is a product that means that what are the vast majority of people doing in the coaching expert kind of space? They're banging their drum on social media, hacking, trying to hack the algorithm, doing reels when they hate it, doing stuffing their expertise into short form content because the algorithm doesn't reward long form content. And they're exhausted and they're over it and they don't really recognize who they are anymore. If they want to look at their social media, it's like it just uh, that's a conversation for another day. But my point is, this is saying, while everybody else is trying to hack the fucking algorithm and try to do this and try to do that, and they're, going all in on social media, exhausting themselves, what's the opposite of that? One long form piece of content every single week that actually pays you. Like, it's a completely different strategy. It's a completely different mindset. And so again, it is blue ocean and it's innovative and it's awesome. I also have to draw attention to the fact that I have orange hands and I also have fake tan that got under my fingernails and I can't get it out. Hot mess over here this week. Anyway, I hope that was really useful. I've got to get off because I've got a meeting with my COO and then, as usual, I'm dressed for the gym. So do my Superman quick change. I'll have my meeting, get changed, go to the gym, and then that's it for the day. And that's the other thing, right? Like, Most people are working so hard to grow their business and get their business out there and, visibility, visibility, visibility. And I don't need to do that. I do this podcast slash YouTube video every single week because I've got something to say. And as long as I've got something to say that I think is going to be valuable to you, I'm going to keep showing up because I love to do it. And also, if I don't, it's like there's nothing left for me to do other than mentor my clients inside the inner circle because the team does everything else. And I think I'd just get a bit weird if I didn't do anything. Anyway, that is it. I will see you all next week. Have a great day. Bye.